At the end of the Victorian era, the number of female serial killers was on the rise, reaching a fever pitch at the turn of the 20th century. One of these infamous harbingers of death used a weapon that was almost undetectable, completely indiscriminate, and she nearly got away with it. In the 1900s, New York City was the most powerful city in America. It overflowed with luxuries and opportunity, and was a national hub for upscale high-class living. A hopeful young woman, born in Northern Ireland, migrated to the United States during that time to claim her slice of the pie. Mary started working as a cook for many affluent families in the New York area. Within 2 weeks of her employment with a family near the bay, residents developed typhoid fever, a very serious bacterial infection caused by a specific type of salmonella. Soon after, Mary moved on to greener pastures in Manhattan, where she became a cook for a new employer. Members of this family started to develop fevers and diarrhea, and eventually one of her co-workers died. Once again, Mary left this position and found another cooking job at the home of a wealthy lawyer. 7 out of the 8 people living at the residence became ill. Mary worked for 3 more families, which resulted in similar occurrences. 6 years into her culinary career, Mary began working for a wealthy banker and his family of 11. Over the next week, 6 members of the family contracted typhoid fever. Soon after, typhoid researcher George Soper suspected Mary may be to blame for all these unexpected illnesses and published his conclusions. But Mary changed jobs so frequently that George was unable to locate her right away to properly investigate. Finally, George found her. She was working as a cook for a family living in a penthouse on Park Avenue. Her work there resulted in the death of a daughter in the family. George requested samples from Mary to test, but she refused. Over the next few years, Mary attracted quite a bit of attention, not only from those in medicine, but from the press as well. The newspapers took to calling her Typhoid Mary. She was finally taken into custody and forced to provide samples to test. Their findings confirmed their suspicions. She was a carrier of the bacteria that caused typhoid fever, but didn't show symptoms. But she was a carrier that could pass the bacteria on to others. After being urged to accept treatment, she refused and expressed that she still wanted to work as a cook. Because of this, she was held in isolation for several years at a clinic on a nearby island of New York. The State Commissioner of Health eventually decreed that if all carriers promised to take reasonable hygienic precautions and not work in any food industry, they may be released. Reluctantly, Mary agreed to these terms, but she eventually went back on her word. She took a job as a laundress, but she found that it didn't pay as well as being a cook. She changed her name and resumed her duties in the kitchens of New York. Her final victims found their demise at a New York women's hospital. 25 people were infected, 2 of them lost their lives. She fled, as always, but authorities were able to catch up with her. She was returned to quarantine, but still refused treatment. Although she never escaped her imprisonment, she found some notoriety while confined. She was occasionally interviewed by the media, who were told to never physically accept anything from her. Some historians believe that a specific dessert Mary made, ice cream with raw-cut peaches, was the source of the spread. Everything else she served was cooked to a temperature hot enough to effectively kill the bacteria. Mary died and her body was cremated. Mary never took responsibility for her roles in any of the infections, which may have totaled at least 100, making her one of the most prolific and contagious serial killers in history.